Hello. Welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. That, folks, is why we love this tournament. From 68 to 66, down to 64, down to 48, down to 32. And as we talk to you live here, just crossed the midnight Eastern hour on a Sunday, to our YouTube audience joining us live, we appreciate you. I'm Matt Norlander. We have 8 more to whittle away on Sunday, and then we will have a Sweet 16. I am joined tonight by Adam Finkelstein and making his Eye on College Basketball Podcast debut, Isaac Trotter. Yes, we are going a trio, a troika, a triumvirate after a fabulous duo of games that wrapped up Saturday and basically helped salvage what was a relatively quiet run from about the time the Kentucky-Santa Clara game ended on Friday until we got to, I don't know, the 9:15 or so p.m. Eastern hour on Saturday night. Gentlemen, thanks for joining. We're going to have a good time here. We got some snoozers to talk about, but I'm really, really thankful, really happy that we get to start this show with what I think is maybe the best 4-5 game ever. And I don't care if it's recency bias. I'm leaning all the way into that. And then we almost had High Point a couple plays away from pulling off a stunner. Fink, Trotter, great to have you here. And Fink, I toss it to you real quick right off the top, man. Just your thoughts on the tournament so far. Welcome back on the show.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. This is what I love. Like, I love some upsets on Thursday and Friday, and then I really like it. I know this is maybe not the consensus, but I love it when it gets a little chalky because I want to see the big boys on the second weekend. So we had drama today, but we're going to have the matchups that we're really looking forward to next weekend. So I couldn't be more excited.
Trotter, quick thoughts before we dive into obviously what was the best game of the day. Your just thoughts on to this point as we get through the end of Saturday with one more day of first weekend action.
I thought I was going to pass out at the end of Nebraska Vanderbilt. That was just unbelievable and electric. A game that I think we absolutely needed to have. And, you know, in the midst of a weekend that feels really, really chalky and it's chalk, I just still get all of the vibrations of what makes March so special. And that game was the absolute goods.
Yeah, it was the goods. Chat is humming. Love to see that late on a Saturday night. I see bosses of ours in the chat. I see Nada in the chat. Miss you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. We've got plenty to get into. Let's dive right into Nebraska versus Vanderbilt because I'm up here in my office. My entire family is asleep. Dog sleeping on the couch down there. Thankfully, did not have any issues with me screaming my head off. Just what we
I woke my dog up. As
you should, because that's what that game was all about and what it deserved, because this was phenomenal on a number of fronts. Nebraska took over that building in Oklahoma City on a level that I'm not there. None of us are there, but I'm just talking about taking in the game on television and the crowd. Vanderbilt played a road game in Oklahoma against Nebraska on Saturday night. So Big Red, big ups to you for making the pilgrimage. I actually talked to Hoiberg before the tournament started because I wasn't sure if they were driving or flying. Nebraska was far enough away by, I think, 7 miles to qualify for the charter jet. If Lincoln had been just a little bit closer from its campus to the literal location of that building, it would have had to take the bus. And if that would have been the case, I think it's close to 6.5 hours, 7 hours or something like that. So no long trip for the Huskers, but I know it was a long trip for some Nebraska fans that made that pilgrimage, made that drive. And that was amazing. We'll start at the end first, but I do want to talk about the game overall. And I had initial hopes about 5 hours ago that we might be able to get out of this show in 45 minutes tonight. Just no, it's not happening. Not with a game that good. We will not get out of this game in less than 15 minutes. Not going to happen. Doesn't deserve to happen. Phenomenal stuff. So Vandy opts not to call a timeout in that tight game down the stretch there. The offense breaks down. The ball eventually winds up in the hands of Chandler Bing. And could he be any more rushed for that shot?
No,
he could not. And so then it immediately goes in transition. Nebraska doesn't call the timeout. Frager finds the ball in his hands with the recovery shot, 2.2 to go. It goes in, and here we are. And then Tyler Tanner finds the ball, the timeout, finds the ball in his hands. Interestingly enough, he lets it go, and he had time for another dribble step and let it go from maybe a half court or just beyond, but he saw he had a clean look. Maybe he thinks in that instant, maybe if I take another stop or another step, it's going to get deflected or it's going to be a tougher one. And it's backboard, it's rim, and it's off. It was farther away than Gordon Hayward's shot. It was closer at going in than Gordon Hayward's shot, and it doesn't fall, and it immediately ranks among the all-time would-be what-if missed shots in basketball. history. Credit to Sam Hoiberg for some heady play down the stretch. Frager gets the glory for hitting the winning difference there. I also can't help but mention, although I don't think it really plays into the ending, because had it been called, the game plays out differently, so I don't like to play that game. There was a blatant double dribble earlier in this game that Nebraska got 2 points out of that it should not have, but if you take that off the board, the game is in the same way. It's butterfly effect and all that stuff. But I know Vanderbilt fans will be very, very keen to remember that call was not made. Fink, I'm going to you. Thoughts on the ending, thoughts on the game? Give me everything you got on an instant classic down there in OKC.
So the dog's name is Louie. It's actually my daughter's dog. I wasn't for the dog. But the dog was woken up when that Tyler shot almost went down. I think when it went backboard and then rim, and then it looked like it was going in, I yelled. And I don't, we watch a lot of basketball. I very rarely yell. I don't think I've yelled since like a Steph Curry half court shot, maybe about 5 years ago, but I yelled at that point, woke the dog up. But to Trotter's point, that is exactly what March is all about. Stories aside, I will say this. 2 things I noticed in this game. Nebraska going to the 1-3-1 late, I thought really threw Vanderbilt on their heels. That was a great decision by Hoiberg. And I also think the return of Frager, aside from just that last minute shot there, he gives this team such an added dimension with him back in the lineup. It totally changes their ceiling. Those were 2 of my biggest observations from this one. I thought the 1-3-1 was really important, and it took the rhythm away from a Vanderbilt team that up until that point looked like they were surging and trying to separate just a little bit. So I thought that was the coaching move of the game.
Trotter?
It was one of those games where I'm sitting there, I'm watching this whole thing, and I'm like, I just feel horrible that a team's going to lose this game. And honestly, when that Tyler Tanner shot went out, I reckoned back to the game against Missouri earlier this year. He had a same half-court shot that was like halfway down again. So this is the second time for him this season that a potential game winner has not gone through. But just full credit to Nebraska. I think the point you brought up about 1-3-1 was terrific. At 2 points in this second half, we had basically had a stretch where 7 straight shots had gone in for both sides, both teams. Like it was bucket after bucket after bucket. And finding ways just to slow Vanderbilt down just a smidge was exactly what Nebraska wanted. And I think the offensive rebounding from Rinkmast and then Sam Hoiberg late in regulation just were enormous things. But I feel gutted for Vandy. I felt like they played a A+ game and lost. And it's just a shame that this isn't a 7-game series and we don't have game 2 tomorrow night.
I agree with you. By the way, Nebraska, second highest field goal percentage night on the season, needed to win this game 56%, and third highest 3-point shooting night, 47% from the field in this one. The surprising thing about this, everyone that watched this game, watched it start to finish, knows the intensity, the crowd. I was cracking up in the first half because the whistle was inconsistent, whatever. I don't care about that in a game like this. It was way too good. But I didn't feel like it was going one way or the other. But there were a couple of calls that were like obvious fouls on Nebraska, and the fans were losing their minds. I'm like, come on, people, that's like a clear call, but they had the home court advantage. Good on them. The surprising part of this, though, only 3 ties and only 4 lead changes in this game. And Vandy didn't even take its first lead until deep into the second half. But it was 40 minutes of tension, just really, really good ball the whole way around. Tanner finishes with 27 points in this one. Price Sanford had 15 points. I really think he might be the most underrated player in the country. Like, you can't say Tanner's underrated. People talk about how good he is, and he's really boosted his reputation. Sanford is a baller. He knows his pace, his space, and can hit the big shots when needed. But between him, Mast, who had 13, Frager wound up with 15, and Sam Hoiberg was Johnny on the spot down the stretch there. Tyler Nickel hit big shots in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Both these teams really showed up well. Vandy did get picked off here by the foul shooting, only 11 of 19 from the line. Vanderbilt as a team this season, a good free throw shooting team. So that's the twist of the knife there. Right now, as we're live here, it's 5th in the country in free throw accuracy. I want to say it was better than that going into this game. So that's the irony there, and doing it in extremely harsh environments. But good on a good fight from Vandy. If anyone watching this in real time, or if you're listening after the fact, or if you're watching on YouTube, if anyone can think of in the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, specifically a 4-5 game that you think was on this level, competitive for 40 minutes, quite literally coming down to the final 3 or 4 possessions with the game being decided on the final shot, I'd love a refresh on my memory. And if there's something that you can pull out, I'd love to see that after the fact. So be sure to find us or email shouts2cbs@gmail.com, and we'll check that as well. A couple other notes on this one here. Nebraska, how about this? Goes until literally 2026 before it wins an NCAA tournament game, and boom, you break the seal on that. You go to the Sweet 16. I thought Hoiberg and Katz were terrific afterward. You could see it in Fred's face. He did not know what to say. He said he thought the ball was going in when Tanner shot that shot. And as we're all taking that in and as he lets it go, it's one of those classic, like, yep, they're letting it go. Let's see if it happens. We don't expect it. It's far away. And then just the blink, the hiccup. Like it really looked like, oh, that's going to go in, and then it didn't. It's almost like your body doesn't even know how to react in real time. I won't forget that shot. In fact, I think it's such an epic missed shot. Obviously, Hayward's in the title game is the all-timer. So this one was on a second round stage instead of a title game stage. I still think it goes into the sizzle reel of just incredible March moments. Weirdly enough, Nebraska wins the game. Frager gets the game-winning shot. Tanner's missed shot will be the lingering and long-lasting image from this game. It's a rare thing when a basket that doesn't go in is the thing that has longevity. I really, really think that's going to be the deal here. A couple notes from me, and I'll throw it back to you guys to wrap on this game. Nebraska's won 28 games this season. That is a school record. Nebraska outscored Vandy 38-22 in the paint, which was a critical development for them. And I was curious to see how dominant they could be down low, given the styles of play. They got it done there. A big time win, and yeah, just a fantastic watch. I'll throw it back to Trotter first, and Fink, you can follow any other stuff about this game. And in fact, I'll tee you up on something and toss it in. I'm seeing a little bit of this out there right now. The PSI on the basketballs, the slight overinflation. Are we going full on conspiracy? What if there was a little less pressure in those balls? Pun unintended. Does Tanner's shot go in? Because I say if the ball was weighed a little less or had a little less pressure, maybe he doesn't shoot it the exact same way, and it doesn't take that same arc, that same parabola, and get that same bounce off the glass. It's a never could know. What say you, Trotter?
Yeah, I mean, if it just fits your narrative, that's what you have to run with. Either side of the aisle. That's right. How we do things in these big things. I will say one schematic thing down the stretch that I thought was interesting. Duke Miles, who's been arguably their Vanderbilt's second best player, was not on the floor for that second to last offensive possession. I wonder if hindsight is 2020, if Byington had used that one timeout when it was kind of going frayed there a little bit down the stretch, get Miles back in on the game. And I wonder if that could have been the difference. But full credit to Nebraska. This is one of the best stories in college basketball this season. I feel like they deserve a chance to have these 4 days of like reveling. After you win, those 4 days before that Sweet 16 game is just straight reveling for a fan base that certainly deserves it.
Two final thoughts from me. Number one, shout out to the camera guy who captured Tyler's facial expressions from, I don't know if you guys saw like the slow-mo, but his face when the ball went in the air, and it's kind of like, yeah, this is a heave. And then you can see his face change when he realizes it has a chance to go in. And just the drama that his facial expressions capture in what is probably 2 seconds from like, yeah, we lose to, oh my goodness, this might go in. Holy cow, we're going to win. Oh, we lost. And it was beautifully captured by that camera crew. The last thing I'll end with, because I'm a sucker for good father-son stories, Sam Hoiberg's birthday today. What a story to get to the Sweet 16. Obviously, first win in school history. Now it's first with Sweet 16 in school history. Father and son tandem leading the way. The kid who started on as a walk-on. Give me more storylines like that. That is awesome stuff.
Vandy, you got a good coach. I know this is a stinger. Probably even more of a stinger, not just not getting to the Sweet 16, but had you gone, presumably you'll face Florida, and you just knocked them out of the SEC tournament. Like, there's a lot of there. It's like, and you had a really good core, a really good season. It ends at 27-9. Bright future with that program. And actually, real quick, Fink.
Yeah.
Tanner gonna be back. Does he have a real chance to? Should he hop into the pool, and will he get drafted? Just real quick on the like.
I expect him to declare and test. But like many of these guys, I think he's a fringe first round pick whose money will be better in college. So unless he gets a guarantee first round, which is hard to come by, I suspect he will be back in college. But I give that about 75-25 odds, because somebody could say, hey, I will take you in the first round. It's not out of the realm of possibility.
A joy to watch play. If he comes back, he will be at worst a second-team preseason All-American, and rightfully so. Nebraska fans, congratulations. This has to feel so damn rewarding. Going on now to the Sweet 16, finding those flights, going to try and take over down in Houston, right? Like that's going to be a Cougar situation. We'll get to that later. I'm checking out my bracket here. It's just, the idea that they're going to have to, I don't know how they're going to take over, but you figure they're going to. That's going to be quite tasty. An unbelievable watch. I loved everything about what I saw there. We can keep it moving. As a reminder, this podcast, Josh likes how I didn't mention this off the top, but yet again, the Eye on College Basketball Podcast is presented by Jersey Mike's, proud sponsor of the Naismith Award. Jersey Mike's would like to offer their congratulations to all the athletes on the watch list. We're going to get to the next really good game. Let's take a break here, and then I want to talk about Arkansas squeaking by High Point. But first, word from our sponsors, which I think means for everyone watching, we're about to see Gary Parrish's face yet again.
This is Gary Parrish. I have a confession. The confession is that sometimes, I hit an afternoon wall. Say, in between doing the Eye on College Basketball Podcast and, walking to the broadcast center for a night in studio, I realized I probably didn't get enough rest. I need some caffeine. I want something sweet, but not like some big sugary drink. And that's why I'm obsessed with the new Fruity Rainbow shots from 5 Hour Energy. They seriously taste like a handful of classic rainbow candy, bright, juicy, and fun, but with a caffeine kick built in. It's like caffeine finally got that flavor glow up it always deserved. And with 17 flavors total in the 5 Hour Energy lineup, there is something for every mood. But this Fruity Rainbow launch is all about that bold, sweet, fruity chaos. What do I love most? It's the big flavor in that tiny portable 2-ounce bottle. I can throw it in my bag, keep one in my car, stash it at my desk, golf bag. It's no bulky can, no sticky wrappers, no sugar crash. It's a zero sugar treat that's totally sweet tooth approved, so it feels indulgent, but it's actually practical. If you're going to grab caffeine anyway, it might as well taste like candy. Get candy flavored chaos with Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon.
All right. Arkansas in the West region holds off 12-seeded High Point, so we do not have, for a second consecutive season, a team from a non-power conference advancing to the Sweet 16. High Point made it a ton of fun all the same there. Arkansas gets a ton to the tune of 94-88. I got some notes and nuggets on this, but I'm tossing it right back. Trotter, you first, and Fink, you can follow your thoughts on what went down out there in Portland late in the final game of Saturday night.
Awesome win for Arkansas to make it to the Sweet 16. But at the same time, this kind of reiterates to me why I'm going to have a really hard time thinking that Arkansas makes the Final Four. I thought their point of attack defense wasn't good enough. I thought their transition defense wasn't good enough. And I didn't think they rebounded very well. And so then you think ahead, not to jump to conclusions, but maybe Arizona could potentially win against Utah State. Arizona's amazing at all of those things. Elite pick and roll offense, elite transition offense, elite on the glass. So yes, this is a good win. Arkansas makes the second weekend. Good vibrations again with this group. Make it to the second weekend in the Sweet 16 under John Calipari. But it is kind of underscoring to me that, like, if they play again like the caliber of basketball that they played today, they will not be giving Arizona much of a game, I think, next week.
I think all of Trotter's concerns are valid. Rob Martin had himself a game, introduced himself to America. Guy's an absolute jet. He can shoot the ball himself. He's surrounded by shooting. Terrific run by High Point. They made a statement, I think, certainly this week, obviously, literally and figuratively, if we're going to go back 48 hours. But the bottom line is one team had Darius Acuff and the other team didn't. And this guy is every bit as good as advertised. What he did down the stretch, let's not talk about the defense, but what he did down the stretch offensively was just phenomenal. Getting to the rim at will, a brilliant layup maker, the shot making from deep, some of the passes, only 2 turnovers in the process. His stat line always seems to be phenomenal, but 36-6 with just 2 turnovers. The vast majority of the game was only 1. This guy is simply brilliant on the offensive end of the floor. And although I agree with everything Trotter said about the Arizona matchup, you can still say one team has got Darius Acuff and the other team doesn't. This is the other thing I'll add. I thought Arkansas looked a little fatigued today. I thought the lack of depth coming off that long SEC run might have played a factor in this one, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. And this is a team that can really use a few days rest right now. I wonder if they look a little more fresh next week than they did today.
This was a wonderful way to wrap the night. And as the chaos and craziness and just riveting nature of Nebraska Vanderbilt's playing out, I got that one on this TV. Then I have Arkansas High Point on the other TV, and I'm trying to keep eyes on both, and it's the best kind of problem to have. And I was so appreciative that we got these two alongside of each other after. We'll get to some other stuff, but we did, and there's one other game in particular that was pretty solid, obviously, but we were left, I think, wanting a little bit here. Here's what I got for you on this game. So this was the first tournament game with two players each going for at least, and a lot of this is our CBS Sports research crew who does great stuff. But I want to give our audience an understanding of just how special this game was. And High Point really, really had a chance. Unfortunately, it boffed like 3 of its final 5 possessions there. And those margins are what matter. It's the difference between getting to the second round and not getting there at all, or getting from the second round into the Sweet 16. They couldn't get it done. But how about this? 2 players, opposing players, with at least 30 points and 5 assists in a tournament game. Last time that happened until tonight was 87. Mitch Richmond at Kansas State and Willie Anderson at Georgia. Rob Martin scored 51. I think he might even have more than this, but when I took this note near the end of the game, it was 51. He's the 5th player all time with 50 points, 15 assists in his first 2 games of an NCAA tournament. Assists became an official stat in 84. He's the first person to do it since Kemba in 2011. Bobby Hurley did it. Billy Donovan did it the year they went to the Final Four. Gary Grant did from Michigan in 87. That's special stuff. He also joins John Morant and Kemba Walker with at least 45 points and 15 assists in the first 2 games of an NCAA tournament to get that done. Acuff is right there with them as well. This is a joke, man. Acuff has the most points by a freshman in his first 2 NCAA tournament games ever. He has 60. The previous records were Cam Thomas, Give Me the Ball King with 57. Zion had 57. Durant had 57. Acuff has 60. Okay. Most points in a tournament game in Arkansas history now belongs to Darius Acuff Jr. with 36. That's also the second most points by a freshman in a tournament game ever. De'Aaron Fox dropped 39 back in 17. DeBonsa has 35. He's now 3rd on the list. He was 2nd until about an hour ago. Good on Arkansas. Has reached the Sweet 16 for the 5th time in the past 6 tournaments. Hog fans, you waited a long. In fact, longtime listener to this podcast will know that GP and I once stumbled into this fact accidentally back in, I think, like 2018, when we were stunned to learn that Arkansas hadn't made a Sweet 16 since 1996. And I think the year after we started talking about this and referencing it, they've been able to make it with regularity. Good job. Arkansas as a program does not lose to double-digit seeds that are 11 or worse. Now 19-0 all-time in the tournament, facing 11 seeds or worse, although that was really threatened here on Saturday night. Arkansas has not lost since it took the tied for the worst loss in Calipari's career. It got beat by Florida by 34. We all remember that. They're on the winning streak since then. So maybe there has been some fatigue, but they continue to get it done. Calipari now going to his 17th Sweet 16. That's tied for the 4th most all time. And they ended the longest winning streak in the country by defeating High Point the way that they did. It was an extremely enjoyable game. We have to shout out Rob Martin. He'll get another shout out before we get to the end of this one, because this guy was everywhere. 30 points. He had a bad travel near the end where hope was probably just about lost, but they needed a 3 on that possession. They couldn't get it. He had 5 assists, 5 turnovers, did fall out. Terry Anderson showed up. Cameron Fletcher in this game had 25. Chase Johnston, he had a shot for a 3 that had it gone in, they really would have had a blink of a chance. He got his own board. They didn't get points on that possession. Credit to High Point, 31-5. As we go live right now, like it really, Flynn Clayman might be at the podium right now or might have hopped off. So if he says something that's particularly interesting, notable, viral, we're just not going to know it in real time because we're doing this podcast. But I am actually interested to see what he says in the wake of this game. Did a wonderful job. This was his first year as a head coach. That was a well-funded mid-major team, and good on them. They made basketball fun. I really enjoyed Clayman, not being shy about speaking out on what it is to be a mid-major coach and the scheduling issues and all that. It's probably a little bit more nuanced than he made it, and I get all that, but I think it was good for him to put it on the main stage, to have it out there for people to react to, and mission accomplished and job well done, because that was part of the conversation, guys, over the past 48 hours. Trotter, think High Point had a chance of going into this one? Because I actually didn't think they'd win, but given their style of play, now, did I think Martin was going for 30? No, but I did give him a chance just because I worried about the Arkansas defense. We saw some of that tonight, but what were your thoughts actually going into this game versus how it played out?
Yeah, I thought just pace and space was kind of perfect for what High Point wanted to do, just get up and down and play fast and play free. I thought they did a really good job of that. I thought they did a good job, too, of avoiding Billy Richmond. If I'm watching Arkansas and I'm trying to scheme up against them, it's like anything we do, we cannot go around Billy Richmond. I thought he was terrific tonight. He had 15 points, 10 rebounds, and just a ton of deflections. He makes a bunch of winning plays. So full credit to High Point for what they've done. I will just put me down for a prediction right now. Nate Oates, we know he is not scared to play anybody. I would not be surprised at all if Alabama and High Point are playing next year in the non-conference.
Okay, I like seeing that, and I hope that they can. I would not be surprised whatsoever. Nate's willing to take that chance. Any lingering thoughts from you, Fink, on the game?
My expectation going in was I didn't think, and Trotter and I talked about this on Friday on our show on CBS Sports Network, was I wasn't expecting High Point to be able to turn Arkansas over, and because that's such a big part of what they build their defense on, I did not expect it to be this close. They did not turn them over. Arkansas committed a total of 7 turnovers, and yet it was close. So credit to High Point again. They made a name for themselves. Coach did go viral. Martin was phenomenal, made a name for himself. At the end of the day, it was just, again, one team had Darius Acuff, the other team didn't.
Acuff is such a killer, man. I love watching his game. I know he can be defense optional at times. I get that. He is the player, and he's a rare player for me. There are certain players in their style of play, how they comport themselves on the floor, on the offensive end, with the ball in their hands. I find him irresistible. I really, really do. And I think the defensive stuff, and I'm not going to turn this into a draft podcast, but I do think some of the defensive concerns. Nope, we're not going to do that. But I will say he is 6'3" and under 200 pounds. And when he has not remotely shown a consistent ability to be someone that can show resistance, that's why he's not in the top 3, top 4 conversation. But everything else that he makes up for, I find phenomenal. Just, incredible stuff. And, of course, he was the one that hit the shot that was the dagger that basically deflated the balloon for High Point here. Let's keep it moving and talk about the other notable game and results and the double-digit seed that will ensure we are not only just having single-digit seeds in the Sweet 16, and that is Texas. Gets the win over Gonzaga. That's an 11-3. That's obviously in the West region, 74-68. Texas has been able to win 3 games in 5 days this time. It flew from Austin to Dayton, then flew from Dayton out to Portland. That's what are we thinking here? That's close to 5,000 miles in the air. I actually didn't have time to look that up before the pod started, but a lot of travel with some wonky scheduling. Funny to think about the fact that if not for Mark Madness, Tremont Mark's winner versus NC State, and what was mostly an aesthetically unpleasing watch in the first 4. They could have lost that game in OT if he doesn't make that shot, but he makes that shot. Now they're into the Sweet 16, joining 2011 VCU, 2013 LaSalle, 2014 Tennessee, 2018 Syracuse, and 2021 UCLA is the only teams to go from the first 4 to the Sweet 16. But that's 6 teams over the course of 15 years of tournament play. Obviously, we never had a 2020 NCAA tournament. I got even more, but floor is yours, Fink, on the game, how it played out, and why do we think Texas, a team that had dropped 5 of its final 6 games in the regular season, you could see the vomit marks on its shoes, on the lower half of its pants going into the tournament, should have gone to the first 4, did go to the first 4. How and why has this team been able to beat 3 top 35 KenPom teams and 3 teams going to each of those games that it was ranked below in the metrics? Despite all that, Sean Miller and his group get it done. How are they doing it?
Well, Texas is a different team than they were 5 days ago because of the momentum that you can build in the NCAA tournament. They limped into this field, losing 5 of 6. The first half of that NC State game was uninspiring, to say the least. And if it weren't for those Tremont Mark heroics, we probably wouldn't be talking about them at all right now. The bottom line is they had heroics again tonight. Cam Heidi knocked down that huge 3-pointer. But this just shows you how quickly you can change the narrative once you get some momentum building. So whatever you might have thought of Texas a week ago, you can throw that out. This is a team that has been somewhat unusual for a Sean Miller coach team. They haven't been particularly good defensively for the vast majority of the year, but they've made significant gains on that end of the floor in the tournament. If you look at how they've performed against these 3 opponents relative to how they normally score the ball in NC State, BYU, and then again tonight. So again, I think that this is a Texas team that has so much momentum, that is now playing with house money. And I'll also say this. I thought from the very beginning that Gonzaga was the most vulnerable number 3 seed. They weren't whole. They were missing Braden Huff. To call them a 3 seed and you know, St. John's a 5, like I don't know. I didn't see it. But that's why initially I thought, hey, NC State had a chance to go on a run because I had them over Texas in the first one. Texas wins that game. And then I said from the very beginning, whoever wins the Texas BYU game, I thought had a chance to beat Gonzaga. That came to fruition. That's not a knock on the Zags at all. It's just to say that I did think they were a little more vulnerable, having seen them live a few times this season and knowing the kind of the history and the data points about how lower seeded programs from true high major leagues tend to fare. So give Texas credit. They've really turned things around and quickly turning into, I know this is, Matt, I think you tweeted this like tonight, calling them a Cinderella. People have different opinions on that.
I said it tongue in cheek, and
yeah,
don't get me started.
The bottom line is they're a double digit seed that's moving on to the Sweet 16, and they really turned things around because that first half of the NC State game, they didn't look like they wanted to be here at all.
Trotter?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that this was not an upset. I know it was a 6.5 point spread, but it really didn't feel like that from a pure talent perspective. And I thought the point guard play was the ultimate, you know, kind of tilting scales moment. Jordan Pope is playing great basketball right now for Texas, and I thought he was tremendous and a veteran senior, kind of seniors die hard type of moment there. On the other hand, Mario Sansuperi for Gonzaga just didn't have his best game when Gonzaga certainly needed a second scorer to emerge. And you're right, like the Zags, like they're different. It's so weird seeing it's a Gonzaga team that's built on defense, and they had to go all in on defense, right? They're starting Jalen Worley, defense first guy. They start Emmanuel Innocente, defense first guy. They're playing Tyon Grant Foster a ton, who has become a defense first guy on the wing, to basically make up for the fact that they just can't score at the level that they needed to without Huff. And I thought Texas just found a way. And not to make it all about historical throwbacks either, but like last year in the Sweet 16, we saw Cam Heide hit a really big corner 3 from the right pocket against Houston to basically tie the game right before that Milos Uzan insane game winner. That it was really cool for me to see Cam Heide step up in the clutch and drill another big right corner 3 to basically seal the game for Texas. Really, really dangerous team.
Miller is now the 10th coach to take at least three schools to the Sweet 16. Did it with Xavier, Arizona, and now the Longhorns. I'll have more on Texas in just a second. Gonzaga, a worthy 3 seed. Like they weren't maybe 3 seed in threatening stature, but the resume said 3 seed. They were a lock of all lock to be a 3 in the West. That's where they wound up. But no Braden Huff, who unfortunately just, if they had advanced the Sweet 16, I still don't think we were seeing him on the floor. They did not have him going back to the middle of January, and this was FU's worst offensive team in a dozen years. So I did not see them as a real threat. I actually picked BYU to beat Gonzaga. Instead, the team that beat BYU winds up beating the Zags here. For the first time ever, Gonzaga lost a tournament game in the city of Portland. Obviously, understandably, hard to beat them there in that region when their fans can drive there, and they're typically a really good seed. So Sean Miller gets that done in the process and gets the Longhorns into the Sweet 16. Gonzaga going into next season will be intriguing. GP and I will get to that after we wrap up this NCAA tournament. But Mark Few, after getting to the Sweet 16 9 years in a row, 2015 to 2024, has now failed to get there in 2 consecutive years. It makes you cherish that Sweet 16 run all the more because it's really, really hard to do. There is an active team right now that has a streak going. We'll get to them before the end of the show. This loss also tied Gonzaga's worst in in seed differential ever. Gonzaga being a 3, Texas being 11. That's an 8-point difference. It fell in 2013 to the Wichita State team that went to a Final Four. It was a 1. Shockers were a 9. And then in 2004, you got to go back. They lost to Nevada when Gonzaga was a 2. Nevada was an 8. If memory serves, Trotter, you're way too young to remember this. I'm pretty sure Nevada was a little bit of a trendy upset pick, and that wound up coming to be there. Gonzaga allowed 46 paint points in this game, comfortably the most the Zags had allowed the entire season. So although they were a pretty strong defensive team, Texas it did have the right dudes. It really did. And that a 2-point game, and in that moment, 1-point game, Cam Heide makes the 3 to make it 72-68. His only made shot of the night. He's just hiding, pun intended, there in the corner. Yeah, I got this. I'll take it. It goes in. Between that and Vokatitis, who has been a major problem. And he's the kind of guy who I remember seeing him early on in the season, and he played a year ago at FAU, but I might have seen him once. I just didn't know nearly enough about him. He's a portal pickup. He winds up being massive, 7 feet, like 250 plus, and he has been on a tear as of late. He's a guy you have to account for every single time out. And he, since the beginning of March, Vocatitis, 21 points, 21, 14, 10, 15, 23, 17. And he's routinely getting, 9 boards, 16 boards in the one before this, 8 boards. He's not a perfect player, but man, he can really wreck your stuff. And I thought that he was pivotal in this game here tonight for Texas. So good on the Longhorns for getting it done. By the way, the SEC was responsible for every WCC team getting booted out of this thing. You had the Santa Clara, Kentucky epic on Friday. Kentucky knocks out the Broncos. You had Texas A&M knocking out St. Mary's, and then you had Texas here knocking out Gonzaga in its final game as a member of the WCC. You guys got anything else on this one?
I would just add this. I think Dalen Swain, 12 assists against 1 turnover. Trotter made the point about how this is the best Gonzaga defensive team we've seen, in large part because it was a bad 3-point shooting team relative to previous iterations. You can't be a defensive team and hope to win when Texas shoots 52% from the floor and has 20 assists and 5 turnovers. Part of the reason they did that is because they've become a team this week, this latest version of themselves, that's got really good balance offensively. Swain took only 7 shots today. They had 5 players score 8 points or more. Vocatitis, as you mentioned, was great, but I think they're harder to guard now because Swain is being more of a distributor and everybody's getting in on the act. That's part of how they are now exceeding expectations.
I don't think you guys were expecting a Stephen Pearl quote on this podcast tonight, but certainly I do have one. And he had a really good, actually really interesting quote about Texas, where he basically said, hey, this is the scariest team in the league. He said Florida was the best team, but he thought Texas was the scariest team in the league. Pretty prescient on a night like tonight, where I feel like Texas now heads into the Sweet 16. Like, hey, they get Purdue or Miami, the winner of that game tomorrow. Like, Texas is going to walk on that floor thinking that they can beat each of those 2 teams. It's hard to argue with how they played in the past week.
Stephen Pearl glow up on a round 2 reaction pod. Build the Photoshop, Trotter, and send it out on Sunday morning. Okay?
I'll do my best.
There we go. That's what I want to hear. Let's take another break, and then we're going to get to all the other action from Saturday, and we'll get going with what the 1 seeds did to move on to the Sweet 16.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
All right, let's talk the 1 seeds here that got the job done without too much drama. You could argue Duke had a little bit, but I want to go to Michigan first. Michigan-St. Louis. This was, let's see, the best watch was Vandy on Saturday was Vandy and Nebraska. Number 2 was Arkansas High Point, but this was number 3. This was, I think, start to finish, this was a better watch than Gonzaga versus Texas. Final margin is 95-72 out in the Midwest region. St. Louis goes from beating Georgia by 25. The quick turnaround, the first, like one of the last games on Thursday to being the first tip on Saturday. Not easy on the body, but it didn't show early on. Ultimately, they'll go from winning by 25 to losing this one by 23. Thank you. You could see the most of the game, the whole game, and your thoughts on SLU giving them a really good battle, but Michigan obviously going Michigan in the end and winning comfortably.
Aesthetically, it was a pretty game. So the fact that it was the only game of that hour, I think, made it a really good watch when everybody was focused on it. I thought Ade Mara was awesome in that first half. Like when SLU was playing well, he just put a lid on the rim. That 3/4 court alley-oop into kind of the reverse layup was a thing of beauty. Yeah. And then Yaxel looked healthy. I had questions coming out of the Big Ten tournament. Those questions weren't really answered in the first round. He looked to be 100% today. That dunk was massive. And I'll just say this. If Michigan is making double-digit threes, they're beating anyone in the country. Bottom line. They're just too big, and when they shoot it like that, they are the best team in the country. So dominant performance against a really, really good and a really, really well-coached St. Louis team.
Well, I didn't ask Josh Schertz about this, but I'm just going out on a limb. I think that St. Louis probably played their B+, A- game and got trucked. Like, that just kind of shows you like how good Michigan is right now. Like, they're just utterly inevitable. I thought SLU was up to the challenge for the most part. I thought their competitive spirit was really, really high. I think sometimes Michigan's raw size can be really intimidating when you just first walk onto the floor. And SLU was the aggressor for a long stretch. But the way that Yaxel Lendeborg is playing right now reminds me a lot of LeBron. He is the LeBron of college basketball right now. At 6'9", he picks up opposing guards for all 94 feet. He passes, he dribbles, he shoots. He hit 3 threes again today. He was just awesome. Just awesome. And then that poster dunk in the open floor is just different. He is, I hate calling Michigan a 3 big lineup now because Yaxel's a guard to me. The way that he's been playing.
Big. I know what you mean, but he is a big. There's no denying what he does. He just has those kind of skills, which is why the for college only framing of that, him being like a LeBron, it is apt when you look at his size, what he does, and what he can do on the floor.
And so then we also got 2 awesome quotes after this game too. Namari Burnett called Yaxel Lendeborg the Dominican LeBron. That was great. Also, Elliot Cadeau did say that SLU is a good team, but they just weren't prepared for a Michigan team that has 3 future NBA all-stars. So I thought that was a little bit aggressive from Mr. Cadeau. But hey, when you have 12 points and 8 assists and 2 turnovers and your team plays great, I guess you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, no question. Lendeborg had 25 in this game. Mara had 16, Merez Johnson 15, Cadeau 12, Burnett 11. I'll have something on that in just a second. For SLU to get above a point per possession on Michigan, only have 8 turnovers, hit 10 threes, and still lose this game.
59% on twos. They shot 59% on twos against the best rim protecting team.
Yep, and that was a good scheme, a good game plan. Just 2 different level of teams, and actually, you guys must agree with this. I'm not saying St. Louis would have beaten any other team, but there were certain matchups that you just the lesser seeded, the worst seeded team, they just got the wrong matchup. If SLU had to face Arizona, would actually be fascinating. But you tell me, what if Duke drew the SLU team? I mean, there's no guarantee Duke is still in this tournament if they had drawn SLU instead of TCU. Agree?
I mean, what if SLU dropped to the 10 line and they're playing Purdue in the second round?
Totally,
that's a ball game.
Yes, agree completely. Robbie Avila, congrats on a great career. Weirdly, it didn't get to 2K points. He needed to get 19 in this game. He only wound up with 9. That's the biggest irony about it. Now, listen, they game planned around it. I get that, but that's a bummer that he couldn't get there. But and I'm thrilled for him that he got to experience the tournament, experience a win in the tournament, and for 2 hours, the nation watched this game, and St. Louis made it really, really entertaining. There was, I mean, Kellen Thames' dunk better be in one shining moment. That's all I'll say. If it's not, we have lost the plot because that was disgusting. I wish I could show it to you, but we cannot show you, even though it's on our air. I guess we can't show you the highlights right now. I'm personally working on the rights negotiator to make sure moving forward we can get that done. I got a few nuggets for you on this game. We can keep it moving here. Michigan has 196 points through 2 games. Now it's a 1 seed, but still, it's the most points by any team entering the Sweet 16 since 08 UNC, which had 221. That team lost in the Final Four. Teams to average at least 95 points, shoot 60% from the field entering the Sweet 16 since 85. 88 Carolina did it, lost in the Elite 8. 08 Carolina, that team I just referenced, did it, and now this 2026 Michigan group. Michigan is the first team out of the Big Ten to get 95-plus points in both tournament games to start a tournament since Iowa in 88. All 5 starters, I mentioned that before, they were in double figures. They had at least 10 points and 4 rebounds. First time that's happened with Michigan in the tournament since 93 against GW. That was, of course, the Fab Five. Here's a Jared Burson banger. All 5 Michigan starters scored in double figures and blocked a shot. That's the first time that's happened in an NCAA tournament game, period, since block shots became a stat in 86. It's a hell of a pull there. Michigan had 9 blocks in this game, the most in its program history since blocks became a stat. And how about Dusty May? 3 Sweet 16 appearances in the past 4 years. He's getting it done and looking good in the process there. So Michigan is beastly. That Lendeborg, Johnson, and Mara, 2 games in, averaging 52.5 combined points, 20 combined rebounds, 5 combined blocks, and shooting 68% from the field. They're not built like any other team in the country. It's a wild, wild time. Let's get to the other 1 seed that got it done. Duke, 81-58 over TCU. For the second consecutive game, Duke did not have a good first half objectively, undeniably, didn't look good at all. Gungbo wound up playing, showed up on a scooter, apparently was to give his foot some rest. Hey, he got on the floor. He played plenty. Fink, your thoughts on the 81-58 win over the Frogs, which had us wondering at halftime if we might have an upset in the making, but obviously that did not come to be.
Yeah, the game was tied at 44 at one point. Cam Boozer only had 2 points in the first half. He had 17 in the second half. Gongba returned. I thought he made the game easier for Boozer. He had 4 assists in 16 minutes. And then Malik Brown was really efficient with 12 and 9 and a block. I thought Caden Boozer continues to be an unsung hero. I think just his poise and presence in the moment is huge. I said he was the singular reason they escaped that Siena game in the first round. But I did want to shout out Dame Sarr because I thought he was awesome. And truthfully, there are a lot of games that I watch and I'm like, man, Dame Sarr looks good. And then sometimes the counting stats don't really add up when you check the box score at the end of the game. I look back at, the Florida State game in the ACC tournament where Florida State came down the length of the floor, had a chance to win it. And in a live possession, Dame Sarr backpedaling is able to play an amazing defensive sequence. So he's had a lot of moments like that, but that don't always show up in the stat sheet. Tonight, he had 14 points, 8 rebounds. He made 4 threes, and his defense continues to be a key part. Remember, this is a Duke team that is giving significant minutes to 4 freshmen right now. With Gongba back in the lineup, they're basically playing 7 guys. It was 6 in the first round. Darren Harris made it like 6.5, but I think he only got 9 minutes in that first round game. So I think that the hope is that they figured it out and they played what John Shire called Duke defense. They had to go back to the zone against Siena. I think the defense continued to be a problem in the first half tonight, but there was a reason they were arguably the best defensive team in the sport for the last month or two of the regular season, and they finally got back to it down the stretch here. So we've seen some vulnerabilities, but hopefully for Duke fans' sakes, they seem to figure it out towards the tail end here and then really separated. I will say this, that I thought the missed goaltending call, and I don't want to harp on this, followed by a bad tee to Jamie Dixon was an unfortunate part of that run. That shouldn't have happened. I thought Jamie handled it really well in the press conference afterwards, but if you're an official in that situation, you can't make that mistake, and you certainly can't compromise it by giving a quick tee to a guy, Jamie Dixon, who isn't exactly known for losing it on the refs. So I thought that was an unfortunate part of what turned out to be the decisive run in the game.
Extremely poorly officiated game. Extremely poorly officiated over and over again. I even thought the flagrant foul I think it was in the first half. Tanner Toulson's basically up in the air. Offensive player.
What do you want him to do? What do you want him to do? Because it's Duke, it's such volatility in terms of the online discussion, so I don't want to give that too much oxygen. I'm sorry, man. He goes up actually, and it was a perfectly fine vertical contest. If you want to call it on the foul, I got no problem with that. Dude, and sorry to cut you off, Trotter, but just if anyone missed it and you didn't catch the game, Toulson is way in the air. He's going, and Boozer, he dekes him into it by all means. But then, the nature of the play, he starts going ass over tea kettle, and guy does not want to seriously injure himself, so natural instinct takes over, and he grasps onto Boozer to break his fall, and they give him a flagrant one. Duke's winning the game no matter what. It was the whistle was awful. No, but you can't. I don't get how they go to the monitor in that situation and don't have the wherewithal, the practicality, and the awareness to understand what actually happened there, and they think they're going letter of the law. It's a poorly applied flagrant one in that situation. Again, Duke's winning the game no matter what, but the whistle was highly problematic and only served to further the you-know-what when it comes to Duke and the refs and all that. So go ahead, Trotter. I just wanted to reset that for our audience there because the missed goaltend was also bad. The Toulson thing, I just don't get. I fundamentally disagree with calling a flagrant one there, and I bet you find other guys that wear stripes that would agree with you. And in addition to, I got a couple of texts from coaches as that was happening. They're like, what the hell are we doing here? You think he was actually trying to have any kind of ill intent? Of course he wasn't.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was heading as well. Now, I will say this. I thought that Duke did find some things down the stretch defensively that they can lean on. Kind of, if you look at some of the advanced analytics, shout out to my boys over at CBB Analytics, Duke has been one of the elite second half defenses all season long. They were awesome down the stretch for the most part. I thought they turned TCU's water off down the stretch, and that's something that they just have to have. That has to be the identity of this team, and I think when we've seen Duke at its absolute peak of its powers this year, it's a defense that gives up very little shots at the rim, nothing easy, nothing clean, and just you play the game on their terms. Duke is going to have a tough draw here, right? Like Kansas or St. John's are both extremely capable of potentially winning that Sweet 16 game. If they get back to defending at the level that they can, I do think Duke can make the Elite Eight. But, I mean, it's honestly 80 minutes of mostly pretty uninspired basketball from Duke in the first weekend, and that has to flip next week.
I think that's undeniable. I think what you just said is accurate. And yet, and like even with like Boozer, I think this is signifies a truly great, like all-time great college player. Like if you've watched Boozer the past 2 games, and if you want to even go into the AC tournament, I'm all for including that as well. He is not operating at the level that he was for most of the season, and yet, freshman to average 20, 10, and 3 through the 2 NCAA tournament games all time. Weber, RJ Barrett, and Boozer. That's the list. Boozer's averaging 20.5 points, 12.0 rebounds, 3.5 assists. He only had 2 points, I think 1 attempt in the first half here today. David Punch got hit in the nose. There are a multitude of factors where if you're a TCU fan, you're like, man, we kind of feel like we had a real thing going there with Duke and we couldn't get it done. Now, credit to Duke in the second half defensively also. Like it did the same thing that it did Siena with different tactics. TCU wound up shooting 33.3% for the game. That was its lowest of the season. And credit to Duke for getting that done, and for Boozer to not just do what I mentioned there, 19 points, 11 boards, 4 assists, 3 steals in this game. He and Kevin Love are the only freshmen ever with multiple games of at least 15, 10, and 3 in the tournament since 84. So he's still doing, like, can I get your guys' quick thoughts on this? Like, he's still getting this stuff done. And I would say he's playing at 65% of his capacity. Fink, what say you?
Here's the thing about Boozer. It's almost it's counterintuitive because he has this unmatched resume for winning, but there are times when he can try too hard to be like the guy. And I would point to the loss at North Carolina this year as an example of that. He's at his best when he's playing in the flow and not worried about how many points he scores. And I think when he starts hunting those stats and hunting the creation and trying to prove that narrative and getting caught up in that, that's when he's least effective. And so it's ironic too, because, he doesn't like being compared to his father. He doesn't like being compared to Kevin Love. He prefers to be compared to Paolo. He's a better player when he's the guy that they compare to Kevin Love and his dad, in my opinion. That's the irony of Cameron Boozer, having watched him for the last 5 years.
Yeah, not to make this about the NBA draft at all, because that's not our thing. But I think there's a reason why he will not go number 1 in the draft. And these 2 games probably illustrate that. Like, he has to play with another shot blocker. And the heavy feet that keep popping up are real things. So that's why he's not going to go number 1, even though he's put up some of the best counting stats we've ever seen from a freshman. And I will add this. I like how Boozer plays a lot more when Pat Gongba's on the floor compared to Malik Brown. I think it just flows a lot better. And so I think Gongba's health over the next 4 days, get him on the scooter again. That's Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey did the exact same thing. He scooted around 24/7 until game days. Do the exact same thing. And if Gongba can play 18 to 22 minutes next week, I think that would be really, really conducive for Boozer's game.
Punch only managed 4 points in this game. I hope TCU's rallying up a fund here because
I'll chip in. I have a little.
David Punch has done his reputation wonders this season, and you either build the whole thing around him at TCU or you get ready because school's going to be coming for him. He can be a major player next season in college basketball. Duke fans, did you realize your program has won 34 games in back-to-back seasons for the first time in school history? And did you realize you were going to the Sweet 16 for a 3rd year in a row? That hasn't happened since 2009 to 2011. Congrats to Duke on getting it done. Jamie Dixon is now 0-7 all-time when he has to face a 3 seed or better. Keep it moving. Michigan State wins over Louisville in the East, a 3-over-6 situation. Jeremy Fears was outstanding in this game. Louisville gave it a good go. No Michael Brown Jr. Final score 77-69. Fears has been terrific. He's operated like arguably the best point guard in the sport this season, and here he goes for 16 dimes in a game. That is tied for 3rd most assists in a tournament game ever. Again, assists an official stat since '84. Marquise Noel at the Garden just a few years back with K-State, and Mark Wade had more. Trotter, right back to you. Thoughts on either side of it? Take it where you want to. Sparty's back to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I thought Fierce was really good, but to be honest, the story of the game for me was Cohen Carr. I thought he was awesome today. Maybe the best game of his career at Michigan State. 21 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Took it really, really personally. Defensively, came up with some huge stops when he was switched on to Ryan Conwell and just punished them. And that type of vicious drives is, I think, when you get Michigan State at its best. You added in a little bit of Trey Fort action, who has just stuck with it. A senior who was out of the rotation for long stretches during the middle of the season, has found a way just to stay in the fight. And he was awesome again today with 3 more threes. So those 2 guys, I think, really, really helped Michigan State. And just same old story for Louisville. Every single time that they play a team that is meat and potatoes and strong and tough and reliable inside, they crumble. And they just didn't have enough bodies today. And I think it would have been the exact same game if Mikael Brown Jr. had played.
I will agree with everything until those last 6 words. I just think I don't know if it would have been the same if Michael had played, because it was somewhat what we expected without him, in that there was no Louisville guard who could get a really disciplined Michigan State defense into rotations. And Conwell's got a lot of game, but he doesn't usually get you with his first step. He's got to get you with his second move. And Michigan State's too good defensively. They don't give you any gaps. And so Louisville never got them scrambling, especially in that second half. The dominoes never started to fall. So Fears was great. Carr was great. Fort made big shots. But I thought it was their ability to control the tempo of the game, keep Louisville out of transition, and really just not allow any of those guards to get anything going. That was the difference. Whether or not that would have happened with Brown, maybe it still would have, but against most teams, Louisville's a different team with Brown in the lineup.
A couple of notes on Michigan State, then I want to toss one more thing back on Louisville before we keep it moving. MSU back-to-back Sweet 16 appearances for the first time since 2012 to 2015. Been a minute there, so congrats to Sparty for getting that done. Tom Izzo has 10 Sweet 16 appearances when not seeded first or second. That's the second most ever. Most Sweet 16 showings by a coach not as a top 2 seed. Boeheim has the most at 13. Then Izzo's got 10. Louisville coach Denny Crum, former Louisville coach, has 9. Cohen Carr, by the way, 21, 10, 2 blocks. He got his first career double-double. Took him 106 games to do it, but he got it done. And I put this note out on Twitter earlier. Tom Izzo on a 2-day turnaround in the tournament. So that's the second round, the later the national title game. He is now 26-9 for his career. When the prep is short, you don't know for sure what opponent you're going to face. And in many instances there, the opponent gets tougher the deeper you go into the tournament. I get that, but 26-9 is ridiculous. That's a 74% win rate. Let's wrap on this game with this. 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Give me a rating and decimal points encouraged. Thank you, and then Trotter. Louisville season 1 to 10. What number do you give it?
6.2.
Okay, Trotter.
5.8.
Wow, that's low. See, for me, my expectations weren't as high.
But do you know what their budget was?
That's also part of it. Okay, and then the next part of this, but I think it was a letdown season, but they got a tournament win this year. They didn't get it last year. They got a better seed this year than they did last year. Now they spent a lot of money, yes, and you had, win healthy, a lock top 10 NBA pick and 1 and done. Sure. Next question is this: why did Michael Brown Jr., who only played in 21 games, receive at best 25% of the blowback that Darren Peterson did? Trotter, you first.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that one. It's a little surprising. I think the optics of it were a smidge different. I think when you see Darren Peterson pull himself out in the middle of a game, I think that just spreads viral on Twitter a little bit better. I do also think Mikael Brown Jr.'s messaging was a smidge better as well. He was really teary-eyed in the locker room today about how much it stunk for him not to be out on the floor and how he wanted to be on the floor with his teammates. But it is a fair question because there are a lot of external factors, I think, going on there. And it does feel a little bit like this Louisville season was robbed because we never really got to see them at their absolute finest when, all the chips were down.
I think I'll hop in real quick here, but I'm only asking it just to ask it. I'm not asking it because I feel like he should be up to that amount of scrutiny. It's a back situation, so those can be very, very particularly cautionary when it comes to that. But I couldn't help but notice it as he continued to not play after some of the messaging going into the tournament was a little more optimistic. And then we kind of learned more and more. No, actually, they knew he would not play in this first round. Your thoughts on Brown and where his stock is heading into the spring session here when he's expected?
Well, sometimes public scrutiny doesn't mirror the scrutiny behind the scenes of NBA people. So, DP was a victim of the hyperbole surrounding him. Listen, I had him number 1 in the country coming out of high school last year, but you didn't hear me comparing him to Kobe Bryant. I thought that was way over the top. There are some players that you shouldn't compare anyone to, and Kobe is certainly one of them. So just from that perspective, he's going to be, everything he does is going to be under just a total microscope. As for Mikel, I mean, the reality is he had some back injuries, or he had a back injury, I think it was his junior year in high school as well. So I do think that availability and durability concerns are going to be a big part of his stock in the pre-draft process. And even if it didn't become as much of a talking point this year, it should have been, because he played in fewer games than Peterson did. But it will be something that NBA people look into in this pre-draft process. Of that, I'm certain.
All right, wrap up with these final 2 games. Illinois in the South wins 76-55 over VCU. That's win 300 for Brad Underwood. Houston in the South wins 88-57 over Texas A&M. That was the worst game of the day. Just summarily booting buckyball from the bracket, and in doing so sets up a tasty, I mean, this is an elite Sweet 16 matchup there. A couple notes from me, and then you guys can take it away on both of these games. Nick Lewis got hurt at the start of the game for VCU with an ankle. That just messed up their whole program. Now, they were able to make a run and actually was competitive in the first half, but you're throwing your rhythm up a little bit. Terrence Hill Jr. thrives coming off the bench. He's suddenly in the game, less than a minute in, and good on Hill. He had 51 points coming off the bench. That's the second most 2 games into a tournament in history. The record is, of course, Jack Golke of Oakland. Andrei Stojakovic had himself a nice game, 21 off the bench there. Wagler did not have a good first half at all, wound up getting 13 in the second half, but Illinois gets it done despite they played fine. They were sloppy in the first half, but they picked it up and got it done in the second half to move along there. Good season for VCU. Not a great look for Carolina and Hubert Davis, all the more after you lose to VCU, and then it can't keep it competitive against Illinois, but that's the tournament for you. As for Houston, it handed A&M its worst loss in school history. Houston has now held all 8 opponents in the past 2 NCAA tournaments at least 10 points below its season scoring average. Just a beast of a program, man. It's the 4th team ever to win its first 2 NCAA tournament games by at least 30 points each. The other teams to do this were 08 UNC. That 08 UNC team, which had National Player of the Year Tyler Hansbrough, was a beast of a team that did not win the title. 99 Duke, one of the best teams not to win a title ever, did this. And then 98 Arizona also got it done. Houston continues to show why I had so much confidence to pick them to win the national title. They are on fire right now. I think I'll throw to you first. Either of these games, either takeaways, or all you.
2 blowouts. I think it's important that, the tough thing about the basketball season is there's only one team that wins their last game. Everybody else goes out with an L. And so, for VCU and Texas A&M, disappointing losses today, but it shouldn't take away from the first year coaches and what they achieved. Phil Martelli Jr. Winning the A-10 regular season, winning the conference tournament, getting the NCAA tournament, winning a game in the tournament. Awesome story. He nailed the press conference again, quoting DJ Khaled. Nobody does a NCAA tournament press conference quite like Phil Martelli Jr. And then, Texas A&M, what Bucky McMillan did there again, they had so much momentum throughout the course of the season, get to the tournament, win a game. So shout out to both of those guys. But listen, this is the matchup that everybody wants to see. Illinois, Houston, one of the best offenses in the game versus one of the best defenses in the game. Tons of 3-point shooting on one team, tons of, athletes on the other team. This is just it. This is what the college basketball world wants to see. We're going to get to see it next week, and I personally can't wait.
Just high level hoops. And I think this is where men and boys kind of got separated. I thought a little bit. And with Houston, one nugget that I just noticed with them, they have really, really improved their depth. Mercy Miller is really balling right now. Chase McCarty has really helped them. This is not a 5-man team anymore. They've just really done a good job of finding different options off the bench, because it just can't be the Milos Uzan, Kingston Flemings, and Emmanuel Sharp show every single night. So I thought those guys were really good to see the bench kind of come to fruition. Then for Illinois, this is not going to be a team that's Keaton Wagler's show 24/7. That's not when Illinois is at its best. It can be in a game-by-game basis, right? You harken back to the Purdue game where he just goes berserk. But I think Illinois is at its best when it's balanced. And Andrei Stojakovic, I think today was awesome. You mix in a good night from Kylan Boswell. You mix in a good night from Keaton Wagler in the second half. You get a Tommy Avicic giving you 14. That's when I think Illinois is really, really dangerous. And if they're not balanced against Houston, they are going home, because Houston just hones in on your best player and takes him out of the game. So great game, just an absolutely awesome game. And that's why chalk in the early rounds is great, because then you get a Houston-Illinois matchup that is the absolute goods.
Yeah. And Matt, one note that I forgot: don't try and dunk on Big Z, because he will dunk on you. I neglected to include that.
That's a water tower flying through the air, man.
Dudes, come on now. That sequence. So you had Lazar Djokovic for VCU almost threw down an insane dunk in traffic. The audacity of that. And then immediately Zvonimir goes down the court and hammer. I sent it out. I don't think I've ever seen a more violent missed dunk immediately followed by a more violent made dunk sequence in my life. That was the highlight of the game. Good job. Good job out of Big Z. Illinois winning, by the way, wrapped up a 4-0 day for the Big Ten on Saturday with the Michigan schools and Nebraska. 3 more alive on Sunday. We'll try and tie last season's SEC. Pulling off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that happened last year. They sent 7 to the Sweet 16, and that was a record. The Big Ten's gonna try that. A couple segments before we get out of here, including our top 5. Here it is. It's time for the 5-Hour Energy Starting 5, sponsored by 5-Hour Energy and their fruity rainbow flavor. Do I sound like GP? Treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity candy flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. Get candy-flavored chaos with a fruity rainbow 5-Hour Energy. Shots online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon. We're going to pick our 5 biggest performers of the day. I'm going to let these guys go first. So Trotter will go 1, Fink will go 2, Trotter goes 3, Fink go 4, and I'll pick the 5th player at the end. Go ahead.
Tyler Tanner, for me, I thought, even in a loss, was just he's just magnificent. I think he is, pound for pound, the best athlete in college basketball. At 6 feet, at 6 feet, the number of dunks that he has is unrivaled for guys his height. And he was unbelievable today. All over the floor, had multiple, I think 4 steals, got in the paint whenever he wanted against a Nebraska team that basically has a no-middle defense. You don't get to the paint against the Huskers. He was unbelievable, and he was, a quarter inch away from going down an NCAA tournament lore for all the right reasons. We'll remember his shot, though, I think forever. And what an unbelievable year. All of the hype was worth it for Tyler Tanner, and one of the best stories in college basketball.
In my opinion, Darius Acuff was the best player of the day today. 36 points, 6 assists, and once again, rewriting the record books. The first player since 2011, Jimmer Fredette, to average 30 points and 5 assists through 2 NCAA tournament games. His 36 points were the second most ever by a freshman in an NCAA tournament game, short of De'Aaron Fox, another John Calipari guard. And he joined Chris Paul and Derrick Rose as the only freshman with multiple NCAA tournament games with 20 and 5, and he's only played 2. He's going to get a 3rd. Spoiler alert. I'll just say this. Game's on the line. Give him the ball. Get out of the way. He led you to the victory. It's exactly what happened.
All right, player 3. Who you got, Trotter?
Let's go back to Yaks. Just the Yaks attack right now for Michigan and Yaxel Lendeborg, the Dominican LeBron James. Just 25 points, 6 rebounds, 1 assist. Played great defensively for long stretches today. The best player on the best. Well, I don't know if I could say the best team right now with what Arizona is doing, but he's just the type of player he has turned himself into is ridiculous, and it's cool to see him have this moment on the NCAA tournament's brightest stage. And now they go. I think that the beautiful part about Yaxel Lendeborg is that all of the questions that we had about his game have been answered this year. He has answered every single one, and he has a few more chapters, I think, left in this book.
Jeremy Fears, 16 assists, breaking a Michigan State NCAA tournament record held by a guy they call Magic. Pretty impressive stuff from Fears. Tom Izzo may call him Irvin, as he did in the postgame, but the rest of us call him Magic. 16 assists. The most impressive part, the vast majority of them required no dribbles after the pass. Some of them just a single bounce. So just literally setting the table, let everybody else eating. And the tip of the spear defensively as well. Jeremy Fears is the heart and the engine of that Michigan State team, leading them to the Sweet 16.
I'll round out our top 5 here, and it's got to be Rob Martin, a high point in a losing effort. A game removed from him having 10 assists and 23 points against Wisconsin. 2 nights later, he goes for 30 against an ultra-athletic, Arkansas team, as he told at the half coming out of there. Like, these are future NBA players. We're trying to, embrace it, have fun. He did 30 points, 5 assists. He did have 5 turnovers, but man, he is a blur out there and embodies the charming aspects and the fun of this tournament. I mean that, like, I would have, I love that I get to go see Arkansas and Darius Acuff Jr. in the West region. I'm flying out to San Jose on Wednesday, and I am all about that. I actually caught Arkansas 4 years ago in the West Regional when that was in San Francisco. So drive a little bit further down and see them out there. That's going to be phenomenal. I would not have opposed to seeing High Point stick around for Sweet 16. I think there's plenty of room and real appeal every time we can get a tournament with at least one team from a non-power conference sticking around into the second weekend. We don't get that this year. Good job out of you, Rob Martin, and your teammates at High Point. So very, very appreciated. We'll wrap with this. We're going to do the Sling game to watch. It can be any game you want on Sunday. We can double up. I've got my own. I don't know what you guys have. You don't know what I have, but pick a game you are most excited to see on Sunday. Fink, I'll go to you first, then Trotter, you're up, and then I'll give you what I'm looking forward to more than any other one on Sunday.
Alabama, Texas Tech, LeBaron Philon versus Christian Anderson, 2 of the best point guards in the sport, 2 point guards that NBA scouts are definitely going to want to watch, both projected as first-round picks. This is going to be an offensive battle. It's also going to be a great scouting game. Sign me up for that one. That's what I'm all about on Sunday.
There are so many good games tomorrow. I cannot wait. I am fascinated by Kentucky, Iowa State. All right, what do we talk about? First game without your injured best player, right? Like, the team always plays well. So Iowa State very well will not have Joshua Jefferson. He's listed as questionable right now with a left ankle sprain. Does not look likely that he'll play. How does Iowa State respond? On the other end, you have Kentucky, who, I mean, we're going to have a whole bunch of fans eating crow if Kentucky's in the second weekend with a game against maybe Virginia or Tennessee, both entirely beatable. Like, could we talk about like a Kentucky team, arguably the biggest disappointment in college basketball, in the Elite Eight? It's in play if they potentially could find a way to win tomorrow. So there's a lot of juicy games tomorrow, but Kentucky, Iowa State is the one that takes the cake for me.
How about that possibility that Kentucky could play Tennessee in the Sweet 16 for 2 years in a row, by the way? That'd be interesting if we actually get there. I'm going to go with the other one that's obvious, and that's the battle between Hall of Fame level coaches, and that is St. John's against Kansas. If anyone's listening and doesn't have this in their head, that's more than understandable. Trotter's game is a 2:45 tip on CBS out of St. Louis. That Kentucky-Iowa State game, that's in the bottom right of your bracket. Tech Alabama is the last tip of the day, 9:45 p.m. Eastern on TBS. That's in Tampa. Tech and Alabama also in that Midwest region, if I remember correctly. Yes, that is right. And then I'm going to the top left of your bracket in the East region with St. John's in Kansas, 5:15 Eastern on CBS out there in sunny San Diego. I was in studio on Friday night as Dominique Daniels Jr. and Cal Baptist tried to rally. Can't get down 26. You get down 16, maybe it's a different story, but we get this outstanding matchup. John Henson actually said on HQ that Kansas's body language in the post-game interview actually did concern him, because you see these post-game interviews after teams win big games in the regular season, particularly in the tournament, and there's a certain joyousness that kind of pulsates through, and that was not Kansas's look. But they were probably a little bit shell-shocked that Cal Baptist gave them a real scare. We'll see if they can carry over. Will it be Peterson himself going on to the Sweet 16? Or can Rick Pitino do it after a year ago, remember, 2 seed, and they couldn't break through, getting knocked out in the second round in Providence by Arkansas and John Calipari. So that is a big-time matchup that I cannot wait to get to. The first game of the day on Sunday is Miami against Purdue, 12:10 Eastern on CBS in St. Louis. So that'll get us going. Then we get into Kentucky, Iowa State, and then you'll have St. John's versus Kansas, and then on down the way. I will be back again on Sunday night. Guests, you're going to have to wait and tune in to watch live or listen after the fact to find out. Kind of like to keep it a little bit of a surprise here and there. Before we wrap, Trotter, you did a good job. First pod. Appreciate you hopping on and making the show better. Fink, you too. You guys got any final thoughts on the day as it is before we wrap here?
No, great hopping on with you. Looking forward to doing it again. Trotter and I will be on CBS Sports Network Monday at noon to break down the Thursday and Friday matchups.
Yeah, I'm just resuscitating, right? Just trying to get back off the mat still after that game. And I would be remiss if we didn't bring up UConn, UCLA tomorrow. Get ready for that game as well. I would love to see who the referee assignments for that game will be, because they are in for 2 hours of pure, utter bliss.
Get a life, Trotter. Isn't that what Mick said today?
Get a life. Okay. Grow up.
Get a life.
Grow up. Get a life. Okay.
Get a life.
Okay. You just raise your voice at me? That's going to be awesome. I'd love to know who the officials are as well.
James Breeding, please. James Breeding,
oh
please.
My gosh. Oh, they're going to be guys who worked the games 2 days ago, but I don't have that off the top of my head. So there we go. Appreciate everyone sticking in. This is a longer episode than we wanted, but that Nebraska Vandy one was just too good not to dive in. Plus, you get 3 voices instead of 2. We'll run it a little bit longer. Response on this stuff has been amazing. If you're watching, hit the like button. If you're just discovering this podcast for the first time, head on into wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, you know the drill. 5 stars, leave a good review. Tell us what you like. We appreciate everything, and we will be back late Sunday night to recap the final day of the first weekend and look ahead to the Sweet 16.